This is Cashology by FMBO, a podcast devoted to the art and science of managing your money. It's like school, but your only homework is living your best financial life. Class is now in session. Ever feel like you just have too many bills? If so, then this might be the episode for you. We're going to talk about consolidating your debt. And by that, we mean taking your debt and rolling it all up into one single payment every month. A lot of people do it, and they have the ability to save a lot of money in the process. So how exactly does debt consolidation work? And is it something that's right for you? Those are the questions we have today. So before we dive into the topic, let's get some disclosures out of the way.
You're darn tootin', sister! Investment products are not FDIC insured, not a deposit or other obligation of the bank, not insured by any federal government agency, not guaranteed by the bank, may lose value. This podcast should not be copied or reproduced without permission. Information and statements within this podcast are subject to change without notice. The Cashology podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to constitute investment advice or recommendations. First National Bank of Omaha does not make any representation or warranty as to the accuracy or completeness of any information or statements within this podcast. When making decisions about your financial situation, consult a financial professional for advice. Podcasts are not regularly updated and information may become outdated. Deposit products are offered by First National Bank of Omaha, member FDIC, equal housing lender. The Cashology podcast, copyright First National Bank of Omaha. Now let's get going! Yeah!
Welcome, and thanks for listening to the Cashology podcast, hosted by me, your guide on the path to financial savvy, Juli Wians. I'd like to introduce today's guest, Kelly Hill. He's a senior personal banker at one of our branches at FMBO and an expert at consolidating debt for our customers. Hi, Kelly, and welcome.
Hi, thank you. How's it going?
Going well. I'm eager to learn more from you because this topic is so important today, especially with rising credit card debt growing within the nation. And it's something that if we don't get our debt under control could really spiral into something that's unmanageable or seemingly unmanageable.
Absolutely.
And I think consolidating your debt is something where it's taking ownership of what has been done in the past and making a plan for the future. There's nothing to be ashamed about. I think everyone at some point in their life has had some sort of debt. And hopefully today's podcast helps some of our listeners.
Definitely. It's definitely something that everyone has and something that everyone can use as well.
So let's jump into it for maybe people who are unfamiliar with the topic of debt consolidation exactly. How would you define that for our listeners?
So debt consolidation is taking any sort of debt and rolling it into one loan or one package, if you will, just to make it an easier payment, maybe a lower interest rate, just something that's a little more manageable for the person.
Okay, so this is taking things like the furniture credit card that I have that has a 20.99% APR, my bank credit card that has a 12.99% APR, and maybe my student loans that has a 6% APR, and like putting them into one type of loan.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That I would just pay off.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So whether it's, any of those examples there, or maybe you have a car, or maybe you have, like you said, credit cards, student loans, those are all good examples. And just getting it into a lower interest rate, something that can help you manage money and save more money over time is always a plus.
Yeah. I love credit cards. I think it's fun to get the perks of them, the rewards.
Oh, yeah.
And I end up spending a little bit on a few of them, right? And one of my biggest fears is that I'll forget about one and I'll have a $50 balance that I just don't pay. And all of a sudden I see a hit to my credit score. So I do kind of love the idea if, I didn't want to manage that many accounts, that many logins, to really put it into one. So I could definitely see the positives of doing this just from a simplification of what I need to manage too.
Well, yeah, and that's always a good thing. Especially with credit card, getting them into one. You can have a credit card that might have a 0% interest on a balance transfer, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can take one credit card from another company and roll it into another one, and just have that all in one area, that helps a lot. There's some perks behind that too with cash back and such. So.
Kelly, you brought up a really good point. So this 0% intro APR and balance transfers. Tell us more about that, because I think that that type of product is what we would likely advise if someone were to go about consolidating their debt. So talk us through that and then the steps we would take.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they have, say, a furniture card or a store card or just any other bank card that has a balance on it and it's sitting in a 18 to 30% interest rate, we can get them going on our credit card here with First National, get them a year's worth of 0% interest. Basically, what we do is we have it at 80% of their total balance and transfer it into the card. And it's, 0% interest payments for 12 months. And that definitely helps knock out principal there. So
that makes sense. And I think there are specific customers and people who this makes the most sense for. And I think what we would advise is for anyone that has an account with a high APR, probably in, the late teens, early 20s of an APR, especially those credit cards, consolidating those, making sure that you get ahead of those payments.
Right.
What other recommendations would you make, or who else would qualify to make a debt consolidation attempt?
Specific to credit card or just in general?
I think in general.
Sure. If you have low balances, or if you have a lower interest card, but it might have a higher balance, those are always good. Balance transferring into a 0%, if you can, is always a good option. But unsecured loans are always a good way to get more debt put into one place. Anybody who has multiple items with debt, they can transfer in there.
Kelly, we've talked in a couple of episodes about credit score and creditworthiness, building up your score. And I think that this does impact whether or not someone can go about this strategy, because if someone's listening and they have a low credit score, we would likely not recommend applying for another loan, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah, there's definitely credit parameters and certain scores that have to be met to fulfill these needs for sure.
So for someone like that, what would you recommend they do in order to pursue some sort of debt consolidation?
Yeah, I mean, so when you come across a situation where the credit's just not there, but they maybe can make the monthly payments and that the higher balance is driving their credit down, I always recommend or advise to knock out the lower balance cards first. So if they have a $500 card and they can pay that off sooner than putting a little more on a higher balance card to try to get that knocked out, I definitely recommend paying the lower balance card off first. Then you can start working towards that. As those cards are paid off, your credit's going to improve. So that's a way to start. And it might just be a little bit more time that we have to wait before we can get into something where we're taking multiple loans and putting them into one. So
that makes a lot of sense. I know there's a lot of theories around which debt to pay first. Sometimes the lower balance, sometimes the lower interest rate. But I think I follow your mindset, this especially when trying to close
right
or stop using certain cards or accounts. You obviously want to pay off your student loans. So when you're trying to get to that $0 on something, paying off the lowest balance and really feeling, like you checked that off, that it's done, would be so satisfying. So I completely recognize that would be a good approach to take. If we wanted to pursue this, what kind of assets does FMBO have, or who should we talk to in order to get started in calculating how long do I have before this is paid off, or what options do I have if I consolidated? How much interest would I pay?
Right.
Less, right? Like,
yeah.
Where can I get that information?
Our website has calculators on it on fmbo.com that you can go to, and you can have a whole slew of debt consolidation calculators, whether that's, auto loan consolidation or unsecured consolidation, HELOC consolidation, however you're looking at it. I mean, there's a whole handful of calculators out there. You can plug numbers through and get interest paid. You can get monthly payments. You can see, if you pay this much, does it make more sense? Or if you pay this much, does it make more sense? So there's definitely the resources out there. I use them all the time.
Yeah, awesome. I'm definitely a hands-on learner. I would love to play around with it and see what my options are.
Certainly, yeah.
Well, Cully, you have been an excellent guest. I am very excited that we were able to share with our listeners some more information on debt consolidation. And if anyone out there wants to learn more or play with those that information that Cully just highlighted, go ahead to fmbo.com to learn more about those calculators.
Thanks for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for more Cashology episodes coming your way soon.